In a harsh land divided by fear and prejudice, a desperate child's life hangs in the balance while hostility threatens to destroy any chance of peace. Sergeant Miller's bitter hatred fuels a dangerous sabotage, putting not only Little Hawk, but the fragile trust between two worlds at risk. Yet, Dr. James Morgan's courage and compassion ignite a powerful, unexpected turning point that defies the darkness. But just wait until you hear how this gripping struggle unfolds, and why justice ultimately triumphs against all odds. Dr. James Morgan stood silently by the wooden window of the Outpost's modest clinic, gazing out across the endless expanse of the western plains. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the rugged landscape, where the delicate line between survival and conflict often blurred. For years, James had carried the weight of his calling with quiet resolve, to heal those in need, regardless of the divisions that tore the land apart. His mission was simple but profound, to protect life in its most fragile form, without prejudice or fear. Yet the reality at the outpost was far more complicated. The air was thick with mistrust, born from years of misunderstandings and hardship between the settlers and the Comanche people who roamed nearby. Each side bore wounds, some visible, others etched deep in memory. That late afternoon, a soft but urgent knock echoed through the clinic door. A woman appeared, her steps hesitant yet determined. Ayana, a Comanche mother, held her child close, a boy named Little Hawk, his small face flushed with a burning fever that spoke of danger. Her eyes, wide with worry, met James's calm gaze. In that moment there was no room for politics or past grievances, only a mother's desperate hope. Ayana's voice trembled as she spoke softly, pleading for help, her words crossing a divide far wider than the plains themselves. Inside, the outpost commander, Captain Blake, paced with a stern expression. His loyalty lay with the settlers, and he regarded the approaching tribe with suspicion. His order was clear: no aid to the enemy. But James knew the true enemy was suffering itself, and his oath as a physician left no choice but to act. As James moved to prepare the medicine, a silent struggle unfolded between duty and prejudice. The fragile bond forming between doctor and mother was a quiet act of compassion in a world that too often judged by fear. Here, in the shadow of conflict, humanity found its flickering light, one small life worth saving, against all odds. As twilight deepened, the vast plains transformed under the rising moon's silvery glow. The sky stretched endlessly above the outpost, and from the distance came the faint, rhythmic beating of drums, steady, deliberate, and haunting. The sound wove through the cool night air like an ancient song, carrying with it the weight of stories untold, tales of honor, warnings passed through generations, and the quiet strength of a proud people. Dr. James Morgan stood at the edge of the clinic, listening intently. Though the beats were foreign to him, they stirred a profound curiosity and respect within his heart. Beneath the tension and fear that gripped the outpost, he sensed a deeper mystery: the rich, vibrant culture of the Comanche, their hopes, their fears, and their unyielding connection to the land. Inside the clinic, James's resolve hardened. Despite Captain Blake's firm objections and the captain's growing insistence that no help should be given to the enemy, James was determined, Little Hawk's life depended on more than orders and politics. It depended on compassion and courage. With steady hands, James prepared the treatments, his actions speaking louder than any argument. Outside, the soldiers' unease grew. Whispers spread like wildfire among the ranks. Fear of retaliation, rumors of an impending attack stirred by the aid given to the Comanche child. The outpost, already a fragile island of uneasy peace, seemed to teeter on the brink of conflict. Yet within the clinic's walls, a different story unfolded. Ayanna's eyes never wavered from James. Her trust was unwavering, a silent pact forged through shared hope and desperation. Between the doctor and the mother, a fragile alliance blossomed, bridging the cultural divide that so many insisted was impassable. The night deepened, and the drums continued their steady call, a reminder that beneath every fear lies a story waiting to be understood, and beneath every conflict the possibility of connection. Just as a fragile hope began to bloom, Little Hawk's fever finally breaking under Dr. Morgan's care, a sudden betrayal shattered the delicate calm that had settled over the outpost. In the shadows of the night, Sergeant Miller, a soldier burdened with bitterness and a heart clouded by resentment, made a choice that would fracture the fragile trust between two worlds. Miller's actions were fueled by deep-seated anger, a desire to prove his fears right, and justify harsher measures against the Comanche tribe. With quiet, deliberate intent, he sabotaged the precious medicine meant to save the child, hoping the tragedy would ignite the flames of conflict and rally the outpost against those they feared. Dr. Morgan's shock was immediate and overwhelming. Not only was an innocent child's life imperiled, but the very foundation of understanding and cooperation they had begun to build was crumbling beneath them. The betrayal was more than an act of cruelty. It was a wound that cut through the fragile hope of peace, leaving suspicion and fear in its wake. Ayanna's heartbreak was a silent, devastating force. She had entrusted her child's life to a man and a world she had barely begun to understand. Now, that world seemed to be slipping away, collapsing under the weight of hatred and distrust. Her grief echoed through the quiet room, a stark reminder of the human cost borne by prejudice and fear. Outside, the rhythmic beating of the drums intensified, rising like a storm gathering on the horizon. The steady call that once carried stories of honor now seemed a warning, a signal that tensions had reached a breaking point. The outpost, once a place of tentative hope, now faced the dangerous consequences of one man's bitterness. The night stretched on, heavy with the silence of betrayal and the uneasy promise of coming turmoil. In the darkness, the fragile thread of trust strained to hold against the gathering storm. In the wake of betrayal and tension, Dr. James Morgan found himself standing at a crossroads, his heart heavy, but his resolve unshaken. With quiet determination, he confronted Sergeant Miller, whose bitterness had nearly cost a child's life and endangered the fragile peace they all depended on. James's voice carried more than anger. It was a desperate plea, a call to the shared humanity and honor of the men at the outpost. In that charged moment, he reminded them that beyond duty and suspicion, their true purpose was to protect life. Time was slipping away with every passing breath. Ignoring the swelling conflict around him, James carefully prepared a fresh dose of medicine, untainted, precise, and full of hope. With steady hands, he administered the treatment to Little Hawk, placing his trust in the power of healing and the strength of compassion. As the first light of dawn crept over the plains, a subtle transformation unfolded. Little Hawk's fever began to break the child's fragile body, responding to the care given against all odds. News of this small miracle spread quickly. The drums that once signaled tension and warning grew quieter, their steady beat giving way to a calm silence that stretched across the land. The Comanche, who had been preparing for confrontation, slowed their advance. The night's fear and anger softened into cautious observation as hope, however fragile, found a place to take root. The moon's glow faded into morning light, and with it the shadow of imminent conflict lifted, if only for a time. In a quiet corner of the outpost, James and Ayanna shared a moment of quiet triumph. Two souls connected by a shared purpose. Despite the walls built by fear and prejudice, life had been saved, and a tentative bridge had been built between two worlds. Their eyes met with a mutual understanding. The power of compassion and courage could reach beyond boundaries, healing wounds deeper than medicine alone. This moment of relief was more than just the saving of a child. It was a symbol of what could be possible when hearts dared to reach across divides, even in the harshest of lands.